Today we're going to talk about canning peaches, and this will also work for other fruit like plums or pears. I had never canned peaches before, so I'm going to show you how to do it, which is pretty easy, and then at the end I'll have some tips and tricks for beginners like me. Supplies you will need will be a large pot for canning, a bowl of cold water, and a bowl to put your sliced and peeled peaches in. I'm using some farm fresh peaches, and you'll need a slotted spoon and a knife, and then of course your clean or sterilized glass canning jars and the metal lids that go with them. Step one is to peel your peaches, and you're going to do this by blanching them similar to how you do with tomatoes. So we're going to put an X in one side and then put them into boiling water for 1 to 2 minutes, or you can do very hot simmering water for about 5 to 10 minutes. Peeling is actually the most time-consuming part of this, so this is a pretty easy recipe. It takes a little time to prep your peaches and can get a little bit messy. Peaches colors will kind of dull when it's in the hot water, and that's when you know it's ready to take out and put into the cold water. So once they've been in the cold water long enough for you to be able to handle them, you should be able to very easily peel off the skin. What happens is the hot water makes this peach expand, and then the cold water makes it shrink a little, so then the skin comes off easily. And if they don't, it could mean you didn't have them in hot water or cold water long enough, but if all else fails, just use a paring knife and try to get the skin off that way. The best peaches to use for canning are called freestone peaches, and that's a variety or several varieties where the pit and the skins don't cling so much to the flesh of the peach. Once you've removed the skin, then you're going to split it open in half and discard the pit. And it could be a little hot on the inside, so do be careful. And like magic, all my peaches are prepped and they're ready to go into the jars. A funnel is very handy to use, well worth the cost. So we're going to fill these jars right up to that bottom rim so that there's a little bit of about 1/2 inch of space at the top, because as these cook, they will expand a little bit. And you want that little bit of space to get a good pressure seal. So now we're going to add our liquid, and you want it filled up just to that bottom line. And you can use pretty much any liquid. You can use plain water, you can use a light sugar syrup, like a simple syrup, or you can use a heavy syrup. You can use grape juice, apple juice, whatever you'd like. And at this point you can add your spices if you want, like cinnamon or honey or maple syrup, things like that. This is just plain light syrup. So now it's time to put on our clean lids. And before we do that, we're going to push down to make sure there's no air bubbles and that our fruit is totally submerged and covered in our liquid. Then take a clean kitchen towel and wipe off that rim to make sure there's no liquid or stickiness there that might interfere with our seal. And we're going to find our clean lid and put that on, and then find our clean bail and put that on. And we are going to put that on not super tight, only fingertip tight. So just a light amount of pressure that you can do with your fingertips. And we'll check for any air bubbles, and it looks pretty good. And now we're going to put that into process, into simmering water for about 25 minutes. You want to make sure that your peaches and jars are warm when you put them in this way. And if you have cold peaches in cold jars, then you need to start with cold water, because otherwise that temperature difference might cause a jar to break. And your processing time, once it reaches up to a boil, is the 25 minutes. And once our jars are in, we're going to top up with enough water to cover our jars by 1 inch to 2 inches. Now that it's been my 25 minutes, I have turned off my pot, and I'm going to remove my hot jars with my wonderful jar lifter. I will leave a link below. These work great for handling those hot jars, and we're going to put it on a heat-safe surface and let it cool completely. And the lids will pop in about 1 hour to 12 hours to know that you got a good seal. And once you check that that lid is down, then you can store that cool jar in your pantry or your basement as you would like. And they will stay fresh for about 2 years or possibly more. I've never had any last that long. You can eat them after about 3 or 4 days, but if you let them sit for a week, the flavor will be much better. My peaches held on to their color and after a couple of days actually became more peachy pink colored. But if you have problems with browning, you can add some lemon juice into your liquid, or you can use a commercial fruit freshener, which will preserve their color without adding any flavor. If you want to hear some tips and tricks, please stick around and I will share them with you. Here in Texas, peach season runs from the beginning of summer until the very end of August, sometime the beginning of September. So now is the time when you might have some leftover peaches that you want to use up. First off, you want to make sure you have all your supplies together and ready and clean. And second, you want to make sure your peaches are the right ripeness for canning. You don't want them super ripe, like really, really soft. They would turn brown and kind of disintegrate and turn into mush during the canning process because they do get cooked for about 25 minutes. So you want not a rock hard peach, but a slightly soft, just beginning to be to the point where you can eat them. If your peaches are overripe, you don't want to can them necessarily. You could slice them up and freeze them, and that's how you can save those really ripe peaches that are perfect to eat. These come out a lot like the peaches in a can that you get at the store, but better, of course. So they're fresher, and you can control the amount of sugar that you put in there, or add spices like cinnamon, honey, maple syrup, whatever you want to flavor your peaches. Peaches can be preserved with the hot water canning method, and it's pretty easy, and you can do it in water, the own juice from the peaches, apple juice, grape juice, or make a simple syrup, which is usually equal parts sugar to water, or you can make a lighter syrup or a heavy syrup, depending on what you want. I went for a very light syrup because I don't want a ton of sugar packed in. I want to be able to taste my peaches. You'll notice the color of my peaches and these kind of feathery bits. Now these started out pretty yellow, like you would get from a canned peach from the store, but because I didn't cut out the center part, which is pink, it's developed more and more of a peach, pinky kind of color, which I like, but if that's not what you want, then you might want to be more careful with your slicing of your peaches. And if these feathery bits, which I also think look kind of cool, bother you, that's the same thing. When you cut those feathery parts out, you'll get more of a uniform slices of peach look, and you can preserve half peaches or sliced peaches. I went for sliced. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe.